Hi everyone, my name is Jena Kulenkamp and I'm the Transition Resource Coordinator at MICC. This presentation is meant for seniors and their families and gives an overview of MICC's transition process, with the focus being on the senior transition timeline and my role in supporting seniors. You may have noticed since I sent out my introduction email on September 1st that my title has slightly changed. Previously, I was known as a Transition Specialist at MICC, and recently my role changed to Transition and Resource Coordinator, so that's the name I'll be using moving forward. I know some of this is repeated from my last presentation, but I just wanted to quickly go over my roles and responsibilities again, so everybody knows what I'm here to support with. So I support seniors and their families as they plan and prepare for life after graduation. I also collaborate with college, community, and careers program staff. If there's a transition-related topic, always feel free to reach out to me directly. I facilitate the senior transition timeline, which I'll get into more later. I teach a senior transition class in spring semester, so spring 2021, and I support seniors with integration into the community program or into the greater community beginning in spring 2021. My role as a transition and resource coordinator is also responsible for providing transition services and resources to all MICC participants that are interested and their families in the areas of county services, housing, transportation, family education, and initial setup and enrollment into the MICC community program or independent living. On this slide, you will see the senior transition timeline, facilitated by me, Jena Kulenkamp, Transition and Resource Coordinator. I'm going to go through this slide in detail, and I know that the print is small, and don't worry, you'll be getting a copy of this as well. So the first area we're going to look at is this, transition programming. This area is led by me, and as you can see, there's different categories on the left, and on the top, there are the different months. We base it off of when college program starts, which is in August. So for transition programming, the Independence Center access begins in August. This is a location that is dedicated to senior transition, and I also office out of there. As you already got my email, I introduced myself in September, and then in October, I complete transition presentations and education. So like this video I'm doing right now, and then I also do one-on-one family discussion and planning meetings with all the seniors. So this year I'll be joining homecoming meetings with seniors and their advisor. And that'll be our one-on-one planning and discussion meeting. In December, seniors are provided with a community program mentor if they choose. This is an optional new program that the community program and college staff are joining up to help seniors just be able to integrate easier into the community program by already having somebody that they know. In January, my class begins, which is a senior transition class. In March and April, we do another round of one-on-one family discussion and planning meetings. This meeting focuses more on what your seniors' plan is after graduation. If they decide to join the community program, we really dig into what services they might need, and then we also go over different recommendations that the college staff has come up with, and myself and community program staff come together to come up with recommendations, which we present. And then if they're choosing not to join the community program, just giving you some outside resources available. As you can see, May is graduation. And if your student decides to join the community program, I'm able to support them in transitioning into the community program by setting up services, introducing them to staff, and all that. The next section is senior social programming and community program integration, which is led by myself and other community program staff. This normally begins in spring semester, so January, where seniors get access to the community center. They can also attend on-site activities with other community program participants. In March, seniors can attend shuttles with the community program participants to CUB and YMCA. In April, there's a joint retreat with seniors and community program participants, and they can also join in on off-site activities at this time. If seniors decide to join the community program in May, there's a Meet the New Community Program Participant Night, which is a really fun night for them to meet each other and get to know all the new community program participants. Obviously, with COVID-19 right now, some of this might change a little bit. We can't predict the future, but this is what would occur in a typical year. The next section is housing and roommates. As you know, MICC staff does not choose seniors' housing or roommate after they graduate. That is up to the student and their families. I usually suggest that students start reaching out to different peers in October through December to see who might be a good fit for living together after graduation. I also suggest that families start talking to when everybody's on the same page. Typically, housing applications are completed and leases are signed anytime between January and March. Final housing should be determined and coordinated with roommates by April, and then move in following graduation. So seniors are required to stay living in their college apartments until after graduation, but that doesn't mean they can't move things into their post-graduation apartment prior. Lastly, if the student decides to join the MICC community program, there is community program staff that are able to help with roommate and emotional support moving forward after graduation. Next section is third-party funding. So in that section, it talks about just making sure you start exploring services in Minnesota. If you need support with that, please feel free to reach out. I'm available to help guide that process. If the student does decide to join the MICC community program, I usually just recommend keeping in contact with your county case manager and changing the waiver to Hennepin County basically anytime after graduation, whenever all parties agree. Next up is financial planning. So typically in February, when I send out my senior spotlight email, I normally do a bunch of resources for finances. There's also a lot of resources in the transition resource guide, which will be coming out very soon. In March, I always suggest that families begin discussing with each other and their student what their post-graduation budget is. And then in April, I just made a little note to remember to keep that conversation going and continue that ongoing financial planning. Make sure by May you get all of your bills, utilities, things like that set up for your new apartment. And then if your senior is choosing to join the MICC community program, financial assistance application is due in May. And then financial assistance awards from MICC are announced in June. And then the awards are applied beginning July 1st. Healthcare and transportation setup is next. This is just a friendly reminder. If your senior is planning on staying in the Richfield area, please make sure you start changing over and finding new medical providers, medical, dental, mental health, any other type of specialist your student might need, making sure that you find a pharmacy near here. And then normally by April, we like to have a transportation plan in place for after graduation. This doesn't have to be a formal plan, just knowing is your senior going to be using Metro Transit, Metro Mobility, walking, biking places, just kind of having a plan in place on how they're going to get around after graduation. Next up in blue is MICC Careers Programming, which is led by MICC's Careers team. Starting in August, all the way up until graduation, seniors have access to career placement and retention services. If they are deciding to join the MICC community program, career service plans are normally finalized in April or May, and then there's optional career support available after graduation. Last but not least, in green is community program enrollment. As you can see that there's green scattered throughout the entire senior transition timeline. The green represents items that need to be completed if your senior plans on joining the MICC community program. So if they're not planning to join, you can please disregard anything that is in green. In January, we'll be sending out an intent to join community program form that will need to be completed so we know who will be joining so our staff can prepare. In February, community program enrollment forms will be sent out and they'll be due at the end of March. In March and April, as I mentioned, I'll be doing one-on-one family and discussion planning meetings where we'll really get to dig deep into those service agreements and get those finalized. There'll also be community and careers program orientations in March and April. And in May, the MICC service agreement begins right after graduation. And then in June and July and continuing on, the service agreements are monitored and adjusted as needed. This slide is just a friendly reminder about communication and important documents. There is family education and presentations at both Homecoming and Winterfest. I also facilitate one-on-one family discussion and planning meetings in both fall and spring. Like I mentioned, I will be joining Homecoming meetings with advisors this year for our fall meeting, and in spring, it'll be myself and other college and community staff that are necessary to go over those recommendations that we developed and create those service agreements if your seniors deciding to join the community program. I also send out senior transition spotlights monthly to remind families of important topics that they can be focusing on that month. For example, in October, I'm going to be sending one out all about housing. To make things simple, at the bottom of each spotlight, I'm going to be putting a to-do list, which is a list of items that correlates with the senior transition timeline on things to be focusing on that month, and we're encouraging families to do if they haven't done so yet. Other important documents are the transition resource guide, which will be coming to you very soon. I've been working hard on developing it, and it's currently in the editing mode, so I'll get it out to you as soon as I can. And then that senior transition timeline, which was the document I went over in detail. That wraps up my presentation about the senior transition process at MICC. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions regarding the transition process or about my presentation. My contact information is on this slide, and I look forward to meeting you all very soon and working with each senior as they begin to plan and prepare for life after graduation. Thanks for tuning in.